Hey, so what is going on, everyone? It is me, Mr. Mario, and today I'm going to be showing you this thing right here, which is an Xbox One controller. Not completely, as you can see right here, but this is part of the Xbox One controller and the part we will need to complete this mod. So, without further ado, I'm going to show you all how you can go ahead and mod the LED color on your Xbox One controller. But to do that, you're going to need to take your controller apart, which I will not be showing in this tutorial. However, if you look either on screen or down below in the description, I should put a link down to a video I made showing how to completely take apart the Xbox One controller, which you must do. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and continue into the mod itself. Before we do this, first off, two things. One of the things, I recommend you watch this tutorial all the way through to make sure you know what to do, you have an understanding of it, and you have everything on hand, or if there's anything you don't have, you can go ahead and order or buy it. And second, I'm going to show you all the parts that you will need here. So first off, you need the Xbox One controller, of course. Second, you're going to need some LEDs. Now, if you did this with the Xbox 360 controller, you probably have SMD 0603 LEDs. That's what I use on here. You can use either 0603s or 0805s. Honestly, I recommend using the 0805s. I did not use those because I wanted to see how this looked, and I didn't have any on hand. However, my light is pretty dim, honestly, so I recommend just going with the 0805s if you want to look really nice. You're also going to need, of course, some tweezers or an electronic squeezing tool of some kind of precision tool, along with your soldering iron, some solder, and some rubbing alcohol, cleaning supplies, and any other soldering stuff such as flux would not hurt to have on hand. Anyways, with all that aside, we can go ahead and start working on the controller itself. So what you want to do right here is you want to go ahead and find where the LED is. Good news is there's only one LED on this controller, so it is a lot easier to do this mod on this controller compared to the Xbox 360 controller because you're doing it one time instead of 4 times. But once you find where the LED is, you want to go ahead and make sure your soldering iron is nice and hot, get some solder, and go ahead and just glob a bunch of solder onto the tip of your soldering iron. This is going to be called flooding the LED, or just flooding for short. Essentially what we're doing is we're taking all this solder, we're going to move it between the 2 points on the LED so we can get them hot enough simultaneously to the point where we could take the LED off of the board itself, so we'll have a nice clean contact and we could put a new LED on there. So now that that point is done, what you want to do is go ahead and find the point where you just took the LED from and go ahead and clean it up. I recommend doing this. You don't have to, but I highly recommend it. What I use is a Q-tip and 90 or 91% isopropyl alcohol. What that does is it gets everything nice and clean super fast, so you'll have no issue making a nice clean contact with your new LED. Now, a second thing I recommend you do as well, just to make your life easier, is go ahead and take some solder, put it on the tip of your soldering iron, and then go ahead and hit both of the positive and negative points on the PCB where the new LED is going to go. That way you're going to have more solder there to work with, and it will be much easier to make a contact point. Also, you're going to raise it off of the board a little bit with those solder globs, so you'll have a lot more room to work with, because trust me, when it comes to soldering like this, a little bit of room is a lot of room. Now for my final recommendation, if you do not have anything to keep the PCB still, what I recommend you do is take the other PCB that is in your controller and go ahead connect the two together. That way you're going to have a more stable platform to put your LED on, because if you don't do that and you don't have anything to keep it still, you're gonna have a bad time because this board is just going to keep moving all over the place. Now this right here is really important. What you want to do is you want to go ahead and look at your controller and see if there are any markings on it where the LED used to be. As you can see, next to the right point on the LED, there is a white dot on my controller. That represents the negative side, the negative polarity. So the one that does not have a marking is the positive side, and that determines how you're going to put in your LED. So if you flip your new LED around to the back, there are going to be some markings on it, and depending on the markings, you can look at the guide on screen, you'll be able to tell what side is positive, what side is negative. So decide what is the negative side on your LED, find the negative part on, or the negative point on your controller itself, and then start soldering. So now what I recommend doing is taking your dominant hand, which would be my right hand because it shakes less, and use that for your soldering iron, and then use the left hand or whatever your least dominant hand is to hold the tool that has your LED. You want to go ahead and use that to put the LED in place and solder it to one point. Once you do that, you want to just go ahead and go over to the other point and melt the solder between the point on the PCB and the point on the LED. And once you have that, the LED should be in place. Now, to make sure it's not moving around or it's not loose or anything like that and it's stable, you want to go ahead and take your tools, so like your tweezers or a flathead screwdriver or anything like that, and just poke it lightly. If it's not moving around and it's really solid, you've done this correctly. Now, to test it without putting the controller back together, you will need both of the PCBs connected together because the second PCB has the drivers and everything on it. But go ahead, hook it up to your computer or your Xbox, and if your LED comes on, congratulations, there's nothing left to do. You've completed this. You just now need to put the controller back together. If your LED is not working, you've probably mixed up the polarities, which is not going to ruin your controller, but that means the LED will not work. So what you need to do is you need to go ahead, desolder the LED, and either use a new one or take the old one and flip it around and then solder it back on. If it's still not working, I recommend just trying another LED. Anyways, this is Mr. Mario signing off. Thank you all for watching, everyone. Have fun putting your controller back together.